There is chaos on the campuses of some of America's most elite universities. The university has lost control of the campus to such a degree that no students can go to school, whether it's UCLA, whether it's NYU, whether it's Harvard University. There are colleges all over America that cannot function because of the chaos unleashed on the campus. Let's think about this as the Ivy League intifada. Look at these images from all over the country. Who do they help? Who do they aid politically? The American people will not tolerate disorder. And Joe Biden wants to pay off the student loans of these kids? This is a political disaster, and it needs to be faced squarely and directly. It is May 2nd, 2024, and there are 187 days until the American presidential election. If it were tomorrow, Donald Trump would be elected. President Biden is behind in the swing states that will decide the election. This is the warning. Television is a powerful tool. Any device with a screen that can show video has the potential to warp your sensibility of what it is that you are seeing. New York City is a metropolis with 8 million people. Is the entire city in chaos, or is it just Columbia University? Is it just NYU? It's tough to tell, because if it's on your screen, then it appears to be ubiquitous everywhere. The world, as it is being presented to you, is presented to you through the lens of a camera. The world is what the camera shows. It doesn't exist an inch outside the frame, not for the television viewer. They see what they see. And so what is it that we are seeing on America's college campuses? Mostly in the United States, we're seeing students go to class. That's certainly the case at the overwhelming majority of American universities and colleges, but not everywhere. There is chaos on the campuses of some of America's most elite universities, including the Ivy League's Columbia University in New York, which costs a student roughly $100,000 a year to attend. And these students, once again, in the shadow of COVID, are homeschooling. The university has lost control of the campus to such a degree that no students can go to school, whether it's UCLA, whether it's NYU, whether it's Harvard University. There are colleges all over America that cannot function because of the chaos unleashed on the campus. Let's think about this as the Ivy League intifada. What is it that we are seeing besides a great deal of moral repugnancy by ignorant young people, boys and girls, children who are steeped in privilege, don't know anything about anything, who have been marinated in a soup of ignorance, have been coddled by their parents, have never worked a day in their life. What is it that you get when you put all of those things together? You get this. Keffiyeh Karen, spokesperson for a generation. Let's watch.
First of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately, in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries, we want to take over this building. Now would you please bring us food and water?
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
Or let's watch these young ladies who have no idea why they've come to NYU from Columbia to protest. No clue whatsoever.
And what would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing? About what? About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine
will be free!
I wish I was more educated.
I'm not either.
Oh.
I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support. So I came down. I heard there's lots of cops. Some people were saying it was dangerous.
What we're witnessing to some degree is a fad by a mob. We are watching the social media generation pointing their phones, pointing their cameras at themselves, and saying to the whole world, look at me. And these are some of America's best students, the brightest. I have college-age children, and I have a serious question for all of the kids out there worrying and fretting about what school they will get into, about their grades, about their test scores. She got into Columbia. This is the caliber of intellect that the Ivy League attracts. Just looking at these Ivy League schools, whether it's Harvard's Ted Cruz or Elise Stefanik, or these children, it seems that there's a problem in the Ivy League, that there's a moral degeneracy, a lack of character and ethics, that what these schools produce are Sam Bankman-Frieds and Josh Hawleys and Ted Cruz's and Keffiyeh Karen. And with regard to Keffiyeh Karen, I have news for her and her $500,000 Columbia education. I would never hire you. Not in a billion years. Because you don't know anything about anything and you're not interested. Spoiled, entitled, petulant, and silly. Yet, these protests matter because what these ignorant young people are embracing is a moral repugnancy. They are embracing not peace, but Hamas. They are calling for and chanting for the extermination of all the Jews in Israel. They're calling for death, not a ceasefire. All of these protests have intimations of violence embedded in them. The intimidation of Jewish students, the calls for more genocide against Jews. Now, this is a tragic hour in the world. There are two major wars underway, and Israel is losing this Gaza war. And it's losing this Gaza war because Israel is led by the most incompetent and amoral prime minister in its history. But that does not relegate Israel, the nation, the people, to the immoral status that is immorally being imposed on them by these protesters who are there in the embrace of an act of terror that murdered more Jews on any single day since the Holocaust. 1,000 Hamas fighters crossed the border, and they killed, they burned people alive, they raped, they murdered, they killed babies, they killed children, they killed old people, they killed Jews wherever they could find them. And they kidnapped hundreds of people, including Americans. What should we say to young people marching with signs that say "Queers for Palestine"? Do they not understand that if they took that signed to the Gaza Strip that they would be killed? It says something when an Iranian university is offering scholarships to all of the American students. And hopefully there's a great many who have been expelled from these schools. Let them go to Iran and let them see how another society operates and functions. They should enjoy it there very much, I suspect. They should see what happens in Iran when students occupy a government building or a university building. Then maybe they can develop a bit of appreciation for the free and pluralistic society that they were born into, making them the luckiest people alive. But they hate it. They despise it. And this self-loathing attribute, this identifying mark of the radical left, is nothing new. And understand this. The radical left is the superfuel by which the fascist right will come to political power in the United States. Look at these images from all over the country. Who do they help? Who do they aid politically? The American people will not tolerate this order. And Joe Biden wants to pay off the student loans of these kids? This is a political disaster, and it needs to be faced squarely and directly. Because when the American people see this, they're disgusted by it, as they should be. This is not popular sentiment. This is not popular opinion. This is not anything other than attention-seeking children. There's another thing that needs to be said. Looking at the Ivy League children and their keffiyehs. They're Americans. They don't live in the Middle East. They don't live in Gaza. They don't have to go through an Israeli security checkpoint. They don't live in Israel, where you have to worry about being blown up in a bakery by an act of terror or killed by a missile launched from a terror group supplied by the Iranians. None of these little girls at these protests on college campuses have to worry about being whipped and lashed for not covering their hair properly. None of them have to worry about being beaten by police. None of them have to worry about being stoned to death by a male relative. None of them have to worry about any of the barbarism inflicted on women in these despotic countries that they venerate, that they celebrate, that they stand as useful idiots for across the world on global television. Less than 80 years have passed since the death camps were liberated. Not even the span of a human lifetime. 6 million Jews shipped, transported, their possessions stripped, taken, stolen, their gold teeth mined. 80 years. And now, on American college campuses, we see laissez-faire calls for genocide from the river to the sea. What it means is the extermination of all the Jews between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. It is 2024, and across America's most expensive colleges, most elite colleges, Jewish students are intimidated. They can't go to class. They're threatened. It is intolerable. And it cannot be tolerated. Because this is America, not the Middle East. We have a different faith here. And our faith is an American one. It says that all are created equal. It says that are all endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights, and that those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We recognize at long last the inherent dignity and value of all human life, regardless of skin color, regardless of ethnicity, faith, religious creed. Or do we? A virus has awakened. Hate is raging. And it's been building for a long time. America's college campuses have become unmoored from the concept of education, from the development of character. Let's watch John Kennedy talk about this concept as he delivers one of the last major addresses of his presidency at Amherst College. Let's listen to John Kennedy talk about what purpose does a college have, a university, if it is not to serve a great national purpose.
I look forward to an America which will reward achievement in the arts as we reward achievement in business or statecraft. I look forward to an America which will steadily raise the standards of artistic accomplishment and which will steadily enlarge cultural opportunities for all of our citizens. And I look forward to an America which commands respect throughout the world, not only for its strength, but for its civilization as well. And I look forward to a world which will be safe, not only for democracy and diversity, but also for personal distinction.
These universities are America's Chernobyl. They have become factories of dogma, producing ideologists. For a long time, people have talked with worry about what's going on college campuses, about the intolerance, about the illiberalism. And now it has all burst forward. Thank God, politically, it is the end of the school year. And soon these colleges will shut down for the summer, largely, and these students will be going home. But if this rages across the fall, in September and October, it will be an electoral disaster for Joe Biden. These protests are growing and escalating, and they are a harbinger of what awaits the Democratic National Convention in the city of Chicago. President Biden was wise to address the country about this matter on Thursday, and he will need to be diligent in making sure that the American people understand that he holds zero sympathy with these spoiled, entitled young people advocating for this amorality, this taunting, hunting, targeting of Jews in America in the third decade of the 21st century. Here's the president.
So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and college education.
This is a moment where there is enormous wishful thinking, hopium, delusional optimism against the events that are transpiring in America. Donald Trump is sitting in a trial. He looks weak. But as Alyssa Farah points out on The View, he can't do himself the damage that he typically does every day while being quiet.
My initial thought was him being on trial and in a courtroom and not on the campaign trail was going to hurt him. I'm starting to think that it doesn't in the same way because he's not out there saying crazy things. He's not saying immigrants are poisoning our blood. He's actually has to kind of sit there silently with his hands folded. So what the media or what people are seeing when they turn on the media, not that crazy timepiece we read yesterday about all the horrifying things he's going to do in a second term, they see violence and they see protests on college campuses. They see young people calling Joe Biden Genocide Joe, and it scares people, whether it's you're from a law and order perspective, whether you're on the fence about Biden. I think there's a real reality right now that Joe Biden could pick up swing voters. He could pick up moderate Republicans and suburban
And why are you in a
women.
good mood again? What was the
listen,
reason she
That's
said-
not why she's in a
Listen,
good mood.
Oh.
he could pick up all the demographics you generally need, but lose young progressives and lose the election to Donald Trump. That's where we are
But
right now.
Nobody knows how all of this will play out over the next 187 days. But what remains true today, as it has for most every day but a few over the last year, is that if the election were tomorrow, the next president of the United States would be Donald Trump. And that will open a door, a portal to global catastrophe that will one day end with the funerals and the rifle volleys and the taps being played as tens of thousands of American caskets are lowered beneath an American flag into the ground. Mark my words. Donald Trump has promised he will deploy the military. He has made clear that it is within government province to murder a political opponent. He has made clear that he believes it is an appropriate use of government authority to monitor a woman's pregnancy. Donald Trump has promised revenge, and he means it. We have 187 days in America to save the country, to rally, to stop something terrible, which requires getting behind something very mediocre, which is the Biden candidacy. It does not inspire. It cannot articulate better. It just is. Stability, normalcy, competency. And it's the best we have. It is catastrophe and death that will surely follow, or it is America and President Biden. All over America, a malevolent movement is baring its teeth. It keeps asserting what it will do. And over again, the people to whom it promises to do those things respond to the threat by saying, what? What did you say? Do you think they meant it? What is it that you think they mean when they talk about locking up political opponents or creating vast detention camps or deploying the military to fill them? What do you think that means? Do you think they're just saying it, or do you think they mean it? I believe they mean it, which is why last night on Scripps News, I said this. Almost the entirety of the Republican Party in Congress denies the result of an election that is the cornerstone, not just of our politics, but our civilization, our way of life. There's no replacement for that. And so the assault on that is a very, very serious thing. And he is promising to pardon hundreds of people, including those who have been convicted of seditious conspiracy of trying to overthrow the government. So there has never been an interview like the one given to Time Magazine by a nominee ever. And two, there has never been a plan in writing as exists right now with this Project 2025 to fundamentally fire everybody in government service, destroy the civil service, and impose a loyalty requirement for government service, not an oath to the Constitution, but an oath to Trump. It's time to wake up. America, it's well past time to wake up. There is a threat at hand. There is a domestic enemy at the door. Can you see it? Your children's future depends on it. So if you can't, perhaps it's time to consider opening your eyes, clearing your ears, and waking up. The world is dangerous. America is threatened, not by an outside force, but by an internal cancer that rejects our creed, that rejects our faith, that rejects our liberty in the name of their power. It is the most un-American movement since the Confederate States. It is the manifestation of Jim Crow for our time. These are the ghosts of the Ku Klux Klan of the 1870s and the 1920s. The fire has begun to burn again. We did not pay attention. We were not careful. And now we will pay the price. How high a price is still in the hands of the American people. But we must together stop this madness now before it goes any further. And it has gone quite far enough. The United States of America is made up of all of the peoples of the world. In this country, every language known to man is spoken somewhere every day. We are a mosaic of faith. Sikh and Baha'i and Mormon and Catholic and Presbyterian and Methodist, Muslim and Baptist and Jew and Native American, and nothing at all. We believe in the separation of church and state. Our government will never tell an American when to bend their knee and submit to God with humility. Ever. There will be no king that says, this is your faith. There will be no emperor that demands obedience. It's our gift, our inheritance, and our responsibility to steward it as trustees for the next generation. There has never been a calm moment in American life, not for a minute, not for an hour, not for a day, a week, a month, or a season. The American people have always possessed and had at their fingertips the collective national self-destruct button. We decide, the American people, if we keep this going, this idea of freedom, of liberty. There's 8 billion people in the world. In all of history, there's only been 700 million Americans, and more than half of us who have ever lived or alive right now. And the terrifying thing is when you look at Keffiyeh Karen, that's the future, our best and brightest. How can you conceivably not be pessimistic? But here's the thing. She's not our best and brightest. Our best and brightest are out on our warships, out in the Army and the Marine Corps, working at our state universities. There's such resiliency in the country, such brilliance, but something has gone off the rails at the top in American life. And the proof of it is where those people send their children to and what those children become when they get there. Spoiled, rotten, petulant, silly, entitled, unpatriotic children like this little girl who wants her catered meal plan. Quite the revolutionary she. As Bob Marley once said, now we gonna find out who the real revolutionary be. 187 days to go. This is The Warning. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to join, subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.